I remember that night well, even though I was young, perhaps 7 years old. My mother and I were returning from my grandmother's house after an evening filled with sweet stories and the smell of her delicious cakes. Night had already fallen, and silence enveloped the streets like a soft blanket. I held my mother's hand tightly, feeling the warmth of her small palm comfort my heart. At an unfamiliar intersection, my mother stopped suddenly. She looked up at an old wooden sign hanging on a pole. The light was dim, but I could see my mother staring intently at it. "What's this, Mom?" I asked, my voice perhaps a little questioning. My mother pointed to the faded words on the sign and said, "It says, Dark Road, unsafe at night." I looked at the road the arrow was pointing at. It already looked darker than the road we'd come from, and the trees looked like giant black monsters standing on either side. My heart sank a little. "Are we going from here, Mom?" I asked her in a low voice, fear beginning to creep into my little heart. My mother gave me a warm smile, the smile that always reassured me. "What do you think, my love? Do you feel brave enough to take a slightly darker path? It'll be a shorter way to get home." I looked into her eyes and saw a mixture of caution and confidence. I remembered the stories about the brave princesses she used to tell me before bed. I puffed out my little chest and decided to be brave like them. "Yes, Mom, I am brave," I said, perhaps a little louder than I intended. My mother laughed softly and held my hand tighter. That's what I expected from my little heroine. "Come on then, we'll walk together and we won't be afraid." We began walking down the dark path. The darkness grew thicker the further we got away from the single streetlight. I began to feel fear seeping into my bones, clinging even closer to my mother. Suddenly, my mother began to sing. Her voice was soothing and beautiful, filling the eerie silence. She was singing my favorite song, the one that always soothed me when I was afraid of the dark in my room. Her voice was like a small light in the darkness. As we walked, my mom began telling me funny stories about our day at my grandmother's, about the mischievous cat who tried to steal the candy bar, and about the joke my grandfather had told that made us laugh out loud. She was trying to distract me from the darkness and the strange sounds we heard in the trees. Suddenly, we heard a strange sound coming from the bushes. I froze and clutched my mom's leg in fear. My heart was beating very fast. "Calm down, sweetheart," my mom whispered softly, but I could tell she was also a little nervous. "It's probably just a small animal." She held my hand tighter and gently pulled me forward. After a few terrifying moments, we saw the yellow eyes of a cat glow in the darkness before it quickly disappeared. My mom and I breathed a sigh of relief. We continued walking, and little by little, the darkness began to fade. I began to see faint lights in the distance, and I began to hear familiar voices, signaling our approach to home. When we finally reached the end of the dark road and the warm lights of our neighborhood appeared before us, I felt a great sense of joy fill me. I looked at my mother and smiled broadly. My mother patted my head and said tenderly, "See, my love, it wasn't as scary as it seemed at first. We were brave and walked together, and that's what matters most." That night, I learned something important. I learned that fear can seem big and scary, but when you have someone you love by your side, everything becomes easier. I learned that my mother is the strongest and bravest person I know, and that having her by my side makes me feel safe even in the darkest of circumstances. To this day, when I think back on that night, I don't remember the darkness as much as I remember the warmth of my mother's hand, her soothing voice, and my sense of pride that I dared to walk the dark road with her.